Welcome all to this webinar. In this webinar, we'll be talking about what's next after Agile. And I see some familiar faces joining in to this webinar, and I'm quite excited and to see you all, to talk to you. And I'm quite curious about this topic too. I've been having various discussions with some of my alumni members, some of the leaders I've been coaching, mentoring and training. What's next, Krishna, after Agile? So as part of this webinar, we will be talking about what's next after Agile. And as part of these discussions, we will be looking at what is the future of it, okay? If we know there is something after Agile, what is it? If Agile is the way forward, is it the right version or is it something different we need to look at? These are the questions I've been having. And we will be exploring a little bit more in detail. As part of this journey, we will also look at the history of Agile, so we can pick some things, pick some of the patterns, we can review some of the patterns, and we can also look at what are the things which really work for some of the organizations from 1950s. There's a rich content from legacy. If there's something we can harvest, what is that? What would that be? That's something we'll be looking to. So as part of this webinar, as we said, we're going to learn together, and we're going to use the chat window. And if you can select the panelists and everyone, you should be able to see everyone's chat at the same time. And this discussion is for 45 to 60 minutes. I have a lot of reference materials, which I'll be posting once we deliver this deck to you as well. So if you are okay with it, I want to bring your focus to the Agile Manifesto. This is the particular part which I really like, because it talks about we are uncovering better ways of developing software. Of course, I've added a couple of bits to it, which is products and services, by doing it and helping others do it. This is part of the manifesto. Cool. Are we okay with this manifesto as is? And of course, with my couple of changes as well. If it's a yes, type in yes in the chat window, please. Okay, Anthony says no. Good. And I'm seeing a couple of yeses. Brilliant. So they are some no's, some yeses. Amazing. That means we have a difference in opinions. When we have a difference in opinions, there's always something new we can discover. That's the beauty of having different perspectives. Doesn't mean that Krishna is right and you are wrong, and you're right, I am wrong. We are both right in our own unique ways, and we differ. So when we differ, let's go and investigate. A little bit about me. So my name is Krishna Chodipilli. I'm a Chief Story Teller for Leadership Tribe, and I love to dance. As part of my work, I use different skills and competencies to work with various organizations. One of them is by coaching, mentoring, training, facilitating, and helping bring change. And the stories of bringing change, and there are some amazing stories which work, and there are some stories which went completely kaput. I'll be sharing some of those. And if you have better information, if you have some great examples which has been working for you, I would love to learn from you as well. It's a learning journey. We are learning together. We are uncovering better ways. So is Agile the better way? I don't know. Let's figure out. So as part of this journey, we want to look into the future. Yes, the future of Agile, which we are quite curious about, and we are interested to see what's next. So as we are moving ahead, I have a small thing which we want to share, which is like, let's look at the evolution of today's most popular term, Agile. Of course, it's coined in 2001, but it has its roots from 1950s. Let's take a quick deep dive. This is the data which I've accumulated from various resources, and I will be sharing that with you. Before I can share this data, I have a small challenge. A small challenge. As part of this challenge, you need to take two attributes. One of them is being curious, about the content. Curious how? As curious as a child. So to understand the deeper meaning of where this person is coming from, is there even better if? And the second thing I wanted to do is look for patterns. If there is something which has happened in 1950s, there is some experiments have been done, there's some validations have been acquired, is there something we can pick and use it in today's ways of working, the way we work today? Is there something we can harvest? That's something which I'm also curious about. What are your takeaways? And how does it reflect in your world, the way you work in your organizations? Let's explore that. So as part of this journey, Denning in 1945, he started with this concept for plan, do, study, act. Plan involves identifying a goal or a purpose, formulating a theory, defining the success, and putting a plan to action. Simple. Do. Bring all the components together in the plan and implement it to deliver some value. Okay. Study, where outcomes are monitored to test the validity of the plan and the signs of progress and success and problem areas for improvement. You gather all the information and you act, where you close the cycle, integrating the learnings generated by the entire process, which can be used or formulated to broaden the learning together. These 4 steps can be repeated over and over as a never-ending cycle of continuous learning and improvements. So this start with Deming. Plan, do, study, act. I want you to look into your day-to-day work and ask yourself, do you do that at some form or shape? So, oh, they're saying that the webinar is in a box shape. It's it for me. Can you see a full view of the screen, please? I am testing a new tool and I'm seeing if this works. So as this tool is screwing things up, I apologize and see, 1945 is cut off. Okay, it's fine for me. There are some few variations with the way we are viewing the screen. So try to fit to the screen and see if it works. If it works, it's amazing. If you can at least hear my voice, that's also better. If not, we will be sharing this content with you. Please don't worry that I can't see the text. We will share this. So on that note, let's go back to our content. Okay. So, okay, that's in 1945. In 1948, Toyota Motor Production System is a way of making things that is something referred to as a lean manufacturing system or a just-in-time system that has came to be very well known and studied worldwide. This production system was established based on many years of continuous improvements with the objective of making the vehicles ordered by the customers in the quickest way. So they want, the moment they order something, they want to deliver quicker to the market. So it's based on 2 concepts. One is Jidoku, which can be loosely translated to automation with a human touch. Automation with a human touch. and then to incremental using Kaizen, a continuous improvement steadily simplifying its operations. And in this process, whenever a problem occurs, the entire system shuts down to look at how do we improve it, fix it, and they carry on. This concept is eliminating waste in every process and make the process repeatable. That's a simple process for Toyota. That's what they have defined it. And I agree with Deva that we haven't tested on mobile. So on that note, I'll be looking out for you, Deva. Thank you very much. So, and the TPS concept for Toyota, it's done miracles. It has worked over the last 50 years, and it's been used as a prime example for various organizations, even in software industry. And it's not only used in software industry, but various industries I've been working with on automobile, finance, Montessori's, schools, universities, even in hospitals. So that's with Toyota production system. Okay, let's move on to 1950s. X-15, the hypersonic jet, was an example for incremental development. And it was specially used in in scientific and technical research. That's an incremental development in 1950s. And in 1986, there were two people, Nanakako and Takuchi. They written an article in Harvard Business Review. It's called the New Product Development Brain. It has 6 characteristics: built-in stability, self-organizing, project themes, overlapping developments, phases. You also got multi-learning, subtle control, organization transfer of knowledge. Simple concepts. And they have been studying product development companies. And these 6 pieces, according to them, they fit together like a jigsaw puzzle, forming a fast, flexible process for new product development. So yes, Nanakaka and Takuchi has also studied product development companies and came with some interesting concepts. Please refer to the Harvard Business Review article, and I would recommend you personally to review it. And it's a great insight of the learnings. And Crystal from Alistair Cockburn, it personally, learning in the early stages of my career, it has helped me with my career, actually, helped me to grow and understand how to work with teams and organizations. Alistair Cockburn talks about very simple steps: seating people together, communicating effectively with goodwill, get most of the bureaucracy out of the way, and let the teams design. Get a user directly involved with the development teams. Have a good automated regression test suite available. Produce shippable functionality early and often. Wow. Do all of that, and most of the process details will take care of themselves. Does it ring a bell? Yes. Quoting Alistair Cockburn, Crystal is a human-powered methodology, rests both on experience and theory, and development can be characterized as an economically constrained cooperative game of invention and communication. So this concept is amazing. So it talks about the economical value. When we talk about economical value, let me try this. In organizations you work with, when we say the economic value is either we reduce the cost of delivery or increase the value in the organization. Let me test that validation. Is that yes or no according to that? Type it in the chat window, please. An economic value. Either reduce the cost or increase the revenue. Yes, you should be doing both, not one only. Either reduce or increase or do both. That's how organizations increase the value. Forget organizations. Do you do that at home? Do you do that in your personal career? So Crystal Clear does not aspire to be the best methodology. It aspires to be sufficient in order that the team will shape to themselves, then actually use it. That's about it. So it's not trying to be perfect, but simple enough as the team can work around the parameters. In 1993, Bill Opi, I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. He wrote a wonderful in his thesis. He describes about pair programming, which defines a set of programs to defines a set of program restructuring operations that support the design, evolution, and reuse the object-oriented programming, object-oriented application frameworks. So as we know, the design is hard. The design of reusable software is especially hard. Reusable software usually is the result of many design iterations, and some of these iterations occur over software has been reused. And the resulting changes affect not only the design of the reusable software, but the design of the software using it. And this concept has been used not only in IT, but for business processes as well. As a business process, if we've been using it, it delivers a value for a time. If it's redundant, is there a way we can make it better to keep the flow continuous? So refactoring, not only for the coding, for writing code, it's used for various aspects as well. And in 1994, Jennifer Stapleton coined the term Dsdm. It stands for Dynamic Systems Development Method. It grew out of experience, out of rapid application development in mid-90s. It focuses heavily on the front end, without a lot to say on how the software is being implemented. The first principle they have is active user involvement is imperative. They use time boxing and dictate iterative and incremental development and requires decisions that can be reversible as well. Now the interesting part, Scrum. Scrum was born out of manufacturing in 1986 and subsequently extended to the software development industry as an agile methodology to counter established waterfall style project management processes. Just to counter that, Jeff Sutherland originated the first Scrum project in 1993, working with Ken Swaber, and formulated as a process in 1995. So that's a part of it. And there's an element of pair programming as well. There's tons of literature, and pair programming actually dates back to 1950s. Fred Brooks, author of The Mythical Man Month, in his book, he talks about a fellow graduate student, Bill Wright, and he and Bill first tried pair programming when he was a graduate student between 1953 to 1956. They produced 1,500 lines of defect-free code. It ran correctly for the first try. So in pair programming, you got the driver and the navigator. So while the driver is writing down the code and the navigator is looking at how do we improve it as we are moving along and course correcting the journey as they building the product. And there's been various authors who have validated this hypothesis, getting two people to work on a piece of work to deliver value. Okay, that's in 1995. You heard about Scrum, pair programming, And let's look at in 1997, in Jeff Luca talked about the feature-driven development. Feature-driven development. It's one of those beautiful concepts. If you can use this, if you can use this in your organizations, I personally love it. It's also known as an FDD. It's a model-driven. It's a simple model driven in short iteration processes that consists of 5 basic activities. 5 basic activities. In one of those activities is understanding the domain object modeling, consists of exploring and explaining the domain of the problem to be solved. The resulting domain object model provides an overall framework in which to add the features. And developing by feature. Any function that is too complex to be implemented within 2 weeks is further decomposed into smaller functions. From features, you create stories, and these can be mapped back to the features. This makes it easier to deliver and correct functions to extend or modify the system. And individual class ownership, feature teams, inspections, configuration management, regular builds, and visibility of progress of results. So this is the history in a nutshell. So bringing back, what is common here? Are there any patterns? Are there any patterns you observed before we even spoke about the Agile Manifesto or the values or the principles? So if you found any patterns, please type them in the chat window. The why, Tina, beautiful. The purpose, every concept starts with the purpose, the why we are doing it in the first place. And for that, you need to understand the problem we are trying to solve. It starts with the problem. I use tools to fix things. I use tools to help me get things done. That's a tool. And depending on the problem, I need to use the appropriate tool. So yes, iteratively delivering the value, stop being granular, the big picture. And what else? Wow. Yes, there are some patterns which we can learn from various organizations as well as from the history. So if we do look at the manifesto, let me bring you back to the manifesto. In 2001, a group of men met together in a ski village. I have questions. What if it was a group of women who met on a ski village? What if the entire group was inclusive? Will this manifesto be different? I'm not sure. I am really not sure. Okay. In the name of Agile, there are 40 different methods. Steve Denning wrote a wonderful article in Harvard Business Review. I would recommend you to go and look at it. In 2016, I believe he counted, I don't know, he has a lovely picture of those 40 different Agile methods. And there are hundreds of practices. So which method would solve the problem for all the things? Can you type in the chat window, please? You can see all the different Agile methods, values, and principles. Which method will solve a problem? So Tina says there isn't one, it all depends. Ajinkya says none. They are tools. Dava says they are tools. All right. Brilliant. Let's look at some of those. Let's look at lean and agile for a minute. So if you're looking at lean is all about, or lean emphasizes about reducing waste, and agile emphasizes about flexibility and adaptability to meet the customer needs. Are we okay with these statements? Type it in the chat window, please. A quick check-in, because this is according to Krishna. Simple definitions. Okay? So those two approaches are not compatible with each other. However, they are not necessarily incompatible with either. It just requires some skill to blend them together in the right proportions to fit a given situation. Let's do an extreme example. Can you reduce waste to zero? Type it in the chat window, please. Can you reduce waste to zero? Wow, I am seeing a lot of no's. I agree with you. I agree with you. The moment you try to control and force fit, it becomes dysfunctional. When you try to bring waste to zero, things stop. Things stop and it becomes slow. First of all, reducing waste to zero is unrealistic, an impossible goal. No business is totally predictable where everything you know, everything is known in advance or to enable a perfect prioritization, planning, or scheduling of resources. Secondly, putting too much emphasis on reducing waste would mean superimposing a level of control and standardization of projects. This could easily be inconsistent with achieving flexibility and adaptability required by the agile approach. On the surface, lean and agile, they might appear to be in conflict with each other. If you pursued with each approach individually and mechanically without understanding the principles behind, at the deeper level, they could easily be in conflict. On the other hand, if you take a systems thinking approach, these seemingly disparate approaches, they tend to get, like Tina has mentioned, they go hand in hand, or one of our colleagues has mentioned in the chat window, they can go hand in hand. Okay, so I use the two terms very carefully. When you say systems thinking, when I've been teaching for enterprise coaches and leaders, the first question they say is systems. When they talk about systems, they think about computers. They talk about integrations, in configuration management. That's not about system thinking. If you want to take system, I want you to imagine system as a planetary system, or even better, as a family. Let me ask you a question. Are you part of a family? Type in yes or no, that should be fine. If you're part of a family, it's brilliant. Okay, Ajinka says yes. Okay, we have few people in this room. They are, okay, there are a few yeses here. So when you look at a family, we have stakeholders. We have rules, we have social contracts, we have expectations. We all work together hand in hand. And sometimes, even with the best intentions, family members, they tend to have not so appropriate, say, outputs, inputs, or consequences. I was a pain in the back for my parents. I loved adventure. I loved motorbikes. And the consequences of me being their son, they have stories to tell. They have stories to tell. So for me, families, it's more or less like a system. Everyone plays a role, there's a reason, everything has a purpose, there's a web of interdependencies. It's a web of interdependencies where we are working very closely to each other. And there are emotions, there are consequences, there are steps, there are processes we tend to do. So for that, one has to be clear, one has to understand, one has to look at the entire system as a whole instead of looking at one item or the other. Okay, now let's look at Scrum and Kanban. And one of the questions was asked to me was Scrum over Kanban. So how many of you heard about Scrum or Kanban in this room or using one? Type yes, please, in the chat window. Okay, we have few people using Scrum. Okay, and Kanban as well. Then the question was asked, Kanban over Scrum. It implies that Kanban and Scrum are interchangeable and the choice of one over the other is only a matter of personal preference. I don't believe that either of those are correct. Kanban and Scrum serve a very different purposes. Kanban is designed for continuous flow, kind of a process that may be somewhat be repetitive. An example would be getting a coffee from Starbucks, from placing an order to delivery. There is a flow, there is a process. Can we refine it, fine tune it in such a way we can deliver value quicker? The overall goal of Kanban is to produce a completed individual work items as quickly and efficiently as possible. On the other hand, Scrum is intended for project work where there is an overall goal of producing some kind of an integrated solution. I've seen some people want to abandon Scrum and move to Kanban because they don't like some of the overhead that's built into Scrum. However, that overhead serves a purpose, provides value, and can be essential for projects that need to produce an integrated solution. The choice of which one you choose should depend on the problem you're trying to solve and objectively fitting the best approach to the nature of the problem. Personal preferences or biases should not be a factor of selecting any of these frameworks. So that's a small introduction about Kanban and Scrum. And I have seen, working with various organizations and interviewing strategic leaders who implemented Scrum, Kanban, Lean, Six Sigma. And these implementations, some of them have been very much superficial, and some of them have been brilliant. And these things, what I would recommend is for any choices you're having, it should start with the problem first, not your biases or your personal preferences. When biases and personal preferences have been used or taken into consideration without unknowingly, we don't do it for knowingly, but sometimes it happens. We are human beings. And some organizations who are implemented superficially, these are my observations I found. Everything you see is fantastic in the name only. It's one of my colleagues who refers to it as a lipstick on a pig approach. And these organizations, there was a lot of kumbaya, people taking pride on visible ceremonies. If you talk about Six Sigma, they include colorful back belt, whatever bells they go with. Most of these implementations failed as organizations were looking for a perfect pill to solve all the problems. When the expectations were not met, bin it and search for the next pill. This is some of my observations when it's been superficial and just purely mechanical, just for the name. So what were your observations? If teams or organizations are adopting any framework, superficially or mechanically, what are your observations? Okay, Ajinka says, and they blame Agile for it. Yes, okay, I heard that. What else? Deva says, sometimes just because it is a fad and they need it for the stock price. Deva, I have one more observation. It's like this, it's called a sheep factor. My next door neighbor has a 55-inch TV. Let me get a 65-inch TV or an 85-inch TV. This organization is doing Agile, and my client said, Agile, let's paint everything in the name of Agile. That's an observation I had as well. And Yusuf, yes, there are some organizations who tries to copy from mature organization, usually a mistake. They need to take small steps that's suitable for the company, suitable for the problem, spot on. Matthew says, spot on, blame the process. And safe is awesome for hat, okay? Javenda says, we need all players be on the same page with the expectations to realize the reality. Prabin, orgs usually use the Agile name without changing or even hiring POs or even getting what they over need. These are all great observations, and I have seen some of them. I have seen some of them personally. Let's look at organizations if they have implemented and understood at the deeper level what they have done. I got some observations as well. Okay. So these are some of the observations, and I believe there is great news or good news, whatever you feel like, what matters to you. The Agile maturity of people's understanding is improving. There's a lot of rich content being delivered. The information, what we are having, what's being available is plenty. And as we are learning and growing, people are able to understand principles and values behind at the deeper level, and they are able to go beyond the superficial and mechanical implementation. The second thing, what I've also observed was Agile is not a silver bullet. We love silver bullet, or you call it the magic pills. For any problem you might have, take it, it will make problems disappear. Rather than force-fitting all the problems to one particular model like Agile, I'm seeing people recognizing the need to go in other directions and fit the methodology to the problem, not the other way around. Let me bring safe. Let me retrofit safe to the problem. Nah, it's the other way. Look at the problem. Take a methodology, framework, you name it, tool. See how you can use the tool, the framework, or even Agile to solve that problem. That's one thing I'm saying. And what I'm also saying is there is a fresh perspectives. When we are hearing people say yes, no, difference in perspectives, I'm seeing a lot of people who've been working in the traditional plan development approaches. They're coming with the new perspectives of looking at Agile as a complementary, not as a competitor. So traditional Waterfall and even the new ways of working, they are coming together. They are creating hybrid models, and various agile approaches such as Scrum, Kanban, Lean are also complementary to each other rather than being competitive. So, and the next one, which I'm also observing, it's called AUMs. AUM stands for artificial useless metrics. Let's measure for the sake of measurements. Velocity, according to Krishna, it's a useless metric. If you're looking at velocity at the team level, it helps you to give you a pattern, how the teams are behaving. If you have a greater definition or better, I would love to learn from you. Anything which does not directly correlate to a value, I have a different view on that. Your thoughts on it? Type it in a quick in the chat window, please. I see the Deva Safe has according to Deva, Safe has awesome definition of velocity based on mandate. No comments. Justin, velocity gives a team to measure, enables a sustainable pace. Yes. And I've seen leaders taking velocity numbers from different teams and comparing them. Team A did 35 points. Team B did 40 points. What's wrong with Team A? They should be delivering 40. Seriously? Okay, these are my views. And if you have difference, I would love to learn. Okay, there are a few more observations which I'm also coming across. This one, which I've seen, is called Divergence and Convergence. Let me share my screen. It's a traditional plan-driven project management is beginning to converge with Agile. That is definitely a strong component of the future of Agile. Agile started out as a revolution against plan-driven project management, what many people usually loosely call as waterfall. And I'm seeing a pendulum shift back to the middle. People are beginning to recognize that there isn't really a binary or a mutually exclusive choice between Agile and waterfall. Rather than force-fitting a project to one of those extremes, a better solution is to fit a methodology to the nature of the problem that requires a blend of both approaches in the right proportion to fit the situation. That's the divergence and the convergence. And the next thing, what I'm also saying is the blended approach. In the blended approach, usually learning how to bring methodologies or frameworks together. For this, a change agent or a coach or a leader requires a broader understanding of methodologies at a deeper level. Many people today do Agile somewhat mechanically by the book without really understanding the principles behind it. And I've seen amazing Scrum Masters beating people up in the name of Scrum. People go for 2 days training programs, become a certified master, and okay, I will try to hold my comments to myself because some of them are not politically correct. If you're having a pint, I would love to catch up with you. The moment we try to force fit, even Agile, in somewhat rigid approach, it won't be able to adapt and make it flexible. That's the opposite. That's exactly the opposite. The intended purpose of Agile or agility, according to me. So the next thing which I'm also seeing is scaling Agile. Many companies are attempting to scale Agile at a larger and more complex enterprise level projects. That will accelerate both the above trends. Agile was originally around small, simple, single team projects, and it can be difficult to scale. Scaling Agile often requires thinking about how to blend it with typical enterprise level management practices. Those practices include projects, program management, project product portfolio management, overall business management. So the knowledge in the community about Agile Force teams is a lot. There's a 20 years of rich content there. Scaling Agile, not so much compared to Agile for small teams or scaling Agile. So I want to be aware of that and look at it holistically, not at individual levels, and start to understand various frameworks at the deeper level as well. SAFe has some interesting concepts, interesting points, and I do like WSJF. If anybody heard about Weighted Shortest Job First for identifying value, I think it's a great tool to use. And I'm not sure about comparing velocity 1 point to 1 man day. I'm not sure. There might be better ways, but according to me, I'm not comfortable using it with the teams. And the next one, which I'm seeing, is the enterprise transformations. Sometimes an attempt is made to force a whole company to be Agile in order to adopt Agile development approach. That just isn't completely realistic or desirable in some cases. Becoming Agile is not the goal in itself. It has to be applied in the context of the company's most critical business objectives. What problem will it solve, and how will it solve it? And how will it solve it? It is difficult to predict the future of Agile, but we definitely can see some trends evolving. So on this note, let me pause for a minute. What are your thoughts? Let me check some questions. Do we have any questions here? Okay, Preben, I see SAFe makes you love Waterfall. Okay. Okay, that's your perspective, Preben. I love you, and I agree that you're correct. Everyone has a perspective, and all perspectives are right because they are right according to you all. And what I'm sharing is some perspectives, some content, some facts. And with that, I'm trying to make it completely clear what is according to Krishna, what is according to Deming, and various other amazing people who wrote some amazing frameworks for us. Okay, so I have a question for you all. Let's look at this. What I have is, after hearing this, so what is the future of Agile according to you? What are the best frameworks out there which works wonders for you? If you have used any frameworks, what is that? And in an organization, if you're working with multiple teams, what is the right organization structure? And I've worked with some organizations, from a CEO to a graduate. I've seen 23 layers. I've worked with one organization, they had 14 different layers from a CEO. And if you have so many layers in the organization, do decisions become slow? They do. When we have slow decisions, will it be hard to pivot with the changing market needs? or even working in a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environments that's called VUCA. So what do you do? And what is the culture? And how are you able to change the culture in the organization? Or if there's a culture which is working for you, what is that? Because I do know that coming from India, living in England, working with various team members in London, some of them are from various backgrounds, rich cultures. We all come together and we create a microculture within the organizations where we are still aligned to the organization goals, vision, and the culture as well. Wow, there's a huge mix. How do we survive in those environments? And what about the flow of value in your organizations, flow of value within your teams from the moment you take a story to delivery? What about the flow of value at the business units? When the business units has a requirement, how quickly can we deliver that value to various departments? Or at the organization level, if we have a strategic initiative, how quickly can we deliver that to our stakeholders? So these are the questions I have for you. So on that note, if you still want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can drop in a note to hello@Leadership Tribe with Krishna as a subject, and I'll be more than happy to reply to some of your emails if I have the bandwidth. And if you're interested to stay for 5 more minutes, I have a tool I would love to share it. This is one of the tools. This tool, which I've been using, I use it at the team level, at the business unit, or at the enterprise level. Some of us are working in either of these levels, and this is one of the tools I've been using. And I also educate my strategic leaders, as well as the future coaches and facilitators. So the tool which I want to share with you, it's a tool which will help us to be better facilitators. One of the reasons organizations need great facilitators is to understand the complexity. As organizations, we have seen 52% of the Fortune 500 companies have disappeared since year 2000. That's pre-COVID. That was in 2017. Add COVID to that dynamics, what happens? Interesting stuff happens. So COVID we can class it as a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environment. For this, as a leader, facilitator, one must understand the situation. At the same time, you should be able to predict the reactions, the results of your actions, understanding the current state, predicting the results of your actions for the future state. It doesn't stop there. As we are moving to a new normalcy, how well can one change to the new reality? At the same time, how can you execute your strategy with the new reality where you are working with people, process, products, and environments? So this is the reality we live in. And for all this reality, no matter where we are, we have to seek the truth. Or you have a choice to hide your head in your sand. For either of those, both require digging. I want you to think about it. So for that, I have a simple powers which I want to share with you. This tool is, I want you to test it out. Get back to me and say, Krishna, it works. Krishna, it doesn't work. Krishna, you are shit. Because this piece of things, nah, I can't believe I've tried it. So for anything, take an action. That means you have to do it to validate it. So these powers first thing it stands for, P stands for purpose. What is the intent behind this activity? If you're facilitating a meeting, what is the purpose of the meeting? If you are working with your team as an agile coach, what is your purpose as an agile coach? And if I want to bring it for facilitating a meeting, what is the outcomes you can deliver, you're expected to deliver from that meeting? So as a facilitator, what is in it for me as a person? And what about my participants? What is in it for them? What will inspire them? What will excite them? What will motivate them? And the next one is called the engagement tools. E stands for the engagement tool. There are multiple engagement tools. I would recommend you to look at the liberating structures. I love it. And I would also recommend you to look at International Association of Facilitators. They have so much rich content which you can use for your Agile team facilitations, for any facilitations in the name of Agile you are working. Please reach out. You can use those tools. And the next thing is your understanding your roles and responsibility. What are your participants' roles and responsibilities? What are they empowered to do? And the last one among all those powers is called S, self-care, prioritizing yourself. The power is useless without self-care. As far as I know, if I didn't sleep properly, if I've not been looking after myself, will I be able to deliver better? No. So do anything which would help you or which can feed your soul. For example, spending more time with your family, going out for a walk, do something new. By looking after yourself, you would be able to look after your teams, your family, whatever it is. It's not kumbaya. It's a simple tool, very powerful, and I challenge you to use it. If you like it, tag me and take a screenshot, tag me. I'll be more than happy. If it didn't work, take a screenshot of this and tag me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to reach out to you. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one thing I have for you. If you want to bring change you need to be the change you want to see in the world. This is according to Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. So I have those last two questions for you. So who needs to take the action here? What would that action be? Ladies and gentlemen, it's been lovely to talk to you. Of course, talking to you. I would love to hear from you as well, and I would love to learn from you. If you have even better content than what you have seen, please reach out to me. So on that note, longest way up, shortest way down. Have a lovely weekend or a lovely afternoon wherever you are. Speak to you soon.